Good afternoon. Welcome to Marty's Tying Bench. This afternoon I'm putting together Vice Squad kits for this week, and the pattern I've chosen is a simple ant. I call it a grizzly ant. Not sure of its origins, but for me I saw it in the mouth of a large brown trout on a magazine cover, so I adopted the pattern and figured out how I like to tie them. Could tie this in any size. We're going to tie it on a size 14 today. You can even use a hook that's 1x long, a little heavier hook. This thing will float quite well. I suggest you use 140 denier thread, UTC 140. Less likely to cut the foam, and we will be pulling pretty tight here. Started the thread in the middle of the hook. And what I'm going to do, I got this craft foam, 2mm, and I cut it the width just about the gap of the hook. If you're using a standard hook, that'll be about right. But it's very forgiving. Going to make a loose loop right over the end and tie that in. Now I'm going to make pretty firm wraps from front to back, so I don't want this back section to spin. This is where having a thread that you can flatten comes in handy. Come back forward to the middle. I'm going to stretch it just a little bit and just lay my thread over the top twice and then kind of pinch it into place while I tighten the thread. And lift that out of the way, and with very firm wraps I'm going to come to the front and check your back section and see. And it's not going to spin. That's in great shape. All the way to the eye. I'm going to stretch this a little bit, and once again change hands because I'm just going to lay that thread over the top, pinch it in place, and then pull it tight. Now a couple of anchor wraps up front will let you hold that in place without a whole bunch of wraps of thread. Now I'm going to smash that thread down once again with firm wraps till I get back, not all the way to the back foam. Pull this back, make a couple of wraps to secure it. Now can you see those wraps are next to each other? You want to cover plenty of foam. Reach in there and stretch a little bit and cut it. And now I'm just going to mash all of that down in the middle. I want a little separation between the head section and the rear section. And if you'll notice, the rear section is half the length of the hook shank. The front part of this ant is smaller, so I use this collar, takes up part of the front half. Now for legs, I've got some spandex. You can certainly use rubber legs. I'm going to use some spandex, and I think this is part of the trigger. I'm going to exaggerate these legs. These legs are long for how you would expect the proportions to be on an ant. And tie some on the far side. Now I'm going to lift all of these up. Got them all the same length. You can always cut them shorter on the water, so I leave these exaggerated and long. And usually I like to fish it just like this. Now for a little bit of flotation help, we're going to tie a grizzly hackle right in the middle. Also makes this thing much easier to see on the water. And go ahead and make several extra turns, 2 or even 3, and make it bushy. And tie that off with a couple of wraps, and then I'm going to jump under the front part of the fly and get to the eye. You'll never see that in all that black. It's all jumbled black under there anyway. But that'll let me tie a whip finish nice and tight on the hook. I'm going to tug these legs until they're in plane. Trim the grizzly tip there. And then I'm going to come underneath and cut some grizzly off the bottom. That'll help this thing land upright, although it's pretty symmetrical. It doesn't really matter which way it lands. But there you have it, a nice, easy grizzly ant.